the Shape tool is one of the easiest tools to use in Illustrator. So it's located underneath the text tool in the toolbar. The icon looks like a rectangle. Now if you click and hold your mouse on that button, what happens is this hidden panel appears and it shows you all of the shapes that you have to work with. Let's go ahead and start with the rectangle. So all I'm going to do is click on that rectangle, and you should notice that your cursor has updated a little bit to indicate it's ready to draw. And what I'm going to do is just click and drag. So I'm holding down on that mouse button and I'm dragging out a box a lot like a text box. And you can see how it creates different types of rectangles depending on where your cursor's at. So when you have it where you want it, just let go of your mouse and it creates the shape. Now if you want to create a perfect square, click to start and then hold the Shift key while you drag out, and you should see that it creates a perfect square no matter where that cursor actually is on the screen. Pretty easy, right? Now if you just click instead of clicking and holding and dragging out the rectangle, so I'm still activated in this command, I'm going to go ahead and just click once. And you should notice that a rectangle window appears, and here is where we can tell Illustrator how high and how wide we want our rectangle to be. But if you notice, it has defaulted to the points measurement. And being interior designers, we don't really work with points too often. So I'm going to cancel out of this. And one of the easiest ways that I have found to just change your measure of units is to go down to rulers from the view command. So up here at the very top, view, rulers, show rulers, and you should see that the rulers appeared on the top and left sides of the screen. Move your arrow onto the ruler, right click, and choose inches. Now when you go to click and place, you should see that it updated to inches. So if I want this to be a 4-inch by 6-inch high rectangle, click OK, and there it has created that rectangle. Now I'm going to use the black arrow to move it up, and I'm going to explain the differences between black arrow and the white arrow here momentarily. But with this particular rectangle highlighted, I just want you to look up in the options bar and see all of your options. You can change the fill color. You can change the stroke color. You can change how thick that stroke color is. And finally, and I'm going to make it a little bit thicker actually, we're going to see what that uniform does. We were trying to do that with text and it didn't really work all that great. So I'm going to just choose this very first one, and do you see how it got real thin on one side and then it's thick on the other sides? Again, this is kind of like a pen tip and almost like we're drawing with calligraphy. So depending on which direction that the stroke is going will depend on how thin or how thick that gets. And so you can kind of see how it changes and updates as you start working with different types of pen tips. Now I'm going to switch it back to uniform, and then basic is the different types of brush strokes that you can do. So here's what it looks like in a charcoal pen. You might need to make it wider so you can see the effect that it's doing. Holy cow, that's wide. Let's calm her down a little there. But if you want to play with other types of brush strokes, right down here in this little button is the brush library menu. So again, I access this on that second scroll bar. And here's the little library symbol. Click on that and it'll bring down all kinds of things that you can play with. Like I like the artistic one. There's even like watercolors that you can play with to see what happens with the border. Lots of different options for you to play with in terms of what that border or stroke is actually doing. I'm going to go ahead and click on that to get rid of it. You can play with the opacity. Styles is kind of fun. You can make it look like a computer button. Prints. Here's another fun print I like. If you want to see more options that you have, again, here's the library for that. And you can do all kinds of stuff like scribble effects. What does that look like? There we go. Somebody's scribbling like a marker or something. So there's lots of different ways to change and make the shape do different effects. So that again was under style. The color wheel, I haven't really played too much with that. Oh, it did do something. So it does help you kind of adjust any pattern that you see if you want it to be green instead of black and white. You can definitely play with that. So that was the color wheel. You can align your shape to the artboard. You can tell it what width you want it to be or what height you want it to be. I haven't really played with a whole lot of these, but definitely feel free to go ahead and play with some of these options that you have in here. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then I'm going to bring my style back to normal. Maybe I'll put a color in there just so that we can see what's happening. Let's do lime green. I'm always a big fan of lime green. Let's talk a little bit about that black arrow and white arrow. The black arrow is good for grabbing shapes and scaling with the grips. So black arrow is chosen. You see the black arrow on the screen. I can move the shape using the black arrow. I can also adjust the scale of the grips on that shape. Now the white arrow has different behaviors, and what's interesting, do you notice how that grip changed when I went to white? So here's the black, here's the white, here's the black, here's the white. So the grips change, indicating that there's going to be different features that you can do with the grip. If I click and drag that grip, you'll notice that it takes the whole shape with it. So yes, you can move the shape with the white arrow. But what happens when you click on it twice? Now you can see how you can kind of form different shapes. And once I've clicked twice, I can click on any of these grips and it will update the shape. Now I'm going to click off of it and on the shape again. And you'll notice if I try to move that grip, it moves the whole shape. But as soon as I click twice, now I can move that grip again. So that's just kind of a strange little behavior that Illustrator gave to the white arrow. It's one that you can manipulate and form your own shape from a designated shape that you see on the screen. Now let's go ahead and look at other shapes. I'm going to go ahead and use the black arrow. Usually if I try to delete with the white arrow, I always find that it never deletes it. So I always go back to the black arrow, make sure that that shape is selected and hit delete on the keyboard. And you can see it actually deleted the grip that I had activated. So click off, click on, now delete, and it'll delete the whole thing. So let's check out these other shapes. I'm going to click and hold over that rectangle. Here's the rounded rectangle tool. So what that does is it creates a rectangle that has rounded corners. And the cool thing about this is you see this little grip that's actually inside the shape, not the one that's on the border, but the one that's inside. If you click on that, that can help you determine just how rounded those corners are, and it'll only take you so far, and you'll see how far it'll let you go. But that's kind of a fun little feature that the rounded rectangle has. And again, if I just want to click on the command and then click somewhere on the screen, I can tell it how wide and how high I want that shape, but I can also tell it what radius I want that shape to be in. Let's look at the ellipse tool. It looks like an egg of some sort. And you can see how you can make it really squished or really tall. If you click and drag and hold shift while you're doing it, that's how you get a perfect circle. So that's kind of fancy. I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these shapes. We got a lot of extra shapes on the screen. The next tool that we have to play with is going to be the Polygon tool. If you click and drag it out, it should default to a six-sided object. If you don't want 6 sides, you want more sides, you want less sides, with that tool activated, go ahead and click on your screen and you should see where it'll ask you for what radius do you want that shape, but also how many sides. So let's say that I want a triangle. We'll do 3 sides. Click OK, and there is that triangle. Now obviously that made a pretty darned symmetrical isosceles triangle, so if you don't want to have something so symmetrical, use the 2-click method and drag out that grip, and then you can kind of create whatever kind of triangle that your little heart desires. There we go. Underneath the Polygon tool was the star tool. Very similar to the polygon. If you drag it out, it defaults to a 5-pointed star. Click if you want to tell it you want more points. So what does a 10-point star look like? I don't know, let's check it out. Woo, there it is. So lots of options that you can do with shapes, and again, you can always use the white tool to make some of these points smaller or larger as you would like. There's no right or wrong way when it comes to actually creating shapes. That flare tool that you saw under there, it's kind of fun. It's a little different. It makes it look like something has a lens flare on it. So if I wanted this shape to have a lens flare, I could kind of drag one out and hit the key and see how it kind of looks like a lens flare. I don't really use it a whole awful lot, but sometimes it's kind of fun to do for a little special effect. So again, to delete any object, you can always click on it with the black arrow and hit delete, but you can also click and drag out a selection box from any blank area on the screen. Anything that selection box touches will become highlighted, and then once it's highlighted, you can hit delete on your keyboard and it gets rid of it. Just a couple more tools to show you. To the right of the text tool, you should see a little line segment tool. If you click on that, it's kind of like AutoCAD. You can click and drag out a line, and you can always update that line by color or thickness or line type if you want to. So here I'm going to come in and do this special fancy charcoal look to it. Whoa, that's really big. That's 60 point. So there's lots of options that you can do with line. If you click and hold on that tool, that hidden panel will sort of pop up. And here's the arc tool. The arc tool is a little tricky. I always feel like I'm most successful with this tool when I click and drag out the arc. I place it, and then I use the white tool to click and adjust where exactly that arc is going. Now you'll notice that there's these little arms on those grips, and that helps you to manage which direction that arc is going. So do you want it really long? Do you want it really short? Do you want to twist it? Ooh, there's like a Pepsi symbol kind of arc, you know what I'm saying? But again, it's a 2-click kind of process to say that, hey, I want to work with this grip. Come back over here, and then you can move it and just kind of play with it and see what shapes that you can create with it. There's some really fun things that you can do with arcs. And when we get into the pen tool, I'm going to show you how to even further your understanding of arcs as we go. The other tool underneath it was a spiral tool, one of my favorite tools. You can click and drag it out, and here is the spiral. But if you click, it will ask you what radius you want. How much do you want it to decay? So decay means how much it like unwinds from the center. And then also what style. Do you want it to go clockwise or counterclockwise? The number of segments has to deal with how many like lines there are between grips. So I'm just going to show you and demonstrate. If I do a 60% decay and I only have 7 segments, click OK. See how that decay looks different? And there's not as many segments, so it's kind of more of an open spiral. There's lots you can do with this kind of shape, but you can see that spirals are kind of fun. I haven't really played too much with the other ones, the grids or the polar grid. Feel free to play with them all that you like, but I'm just going to go on to the last tool I want to show you, which is the paintbrush tool. So here's the paintbrush, and basically it is a freestyle kind of brush. So you can see I already had it pre-programmed with this blue color and this brush definition. So if I come over here and do 6 point and then do it, see how it kind of ghosts the path that you're drawing by clicking and dragging, and then it'll kind of create and update what it needs to. So that's kind of fun, and remember that it's always your stroke on your lines, your arcs, and your spirals that matter the most. If you do a fill on it, let's see what happens when we draw with a fill. Where's the brush? There it is. La. Yeah, see, it doesn't really do too much. It can fill in, like if you have an arc or a spiral. I have seen where it does fill in a little bit on that. Let's see if it'll do it. Yeah, nope, still not doing it. It just, see how it went right to the no fill button. But essentially, those are the freehanded tools. I do want to point out one of my favorite brush for freehanding, which is the decorative scatter. And it has these little shapes. So let me find... The snowflake is kind of one of my favorites. So I'm going to do the snowflake. And then I'm going to activate the brush technique, and I'm going to have this kind of come out and see how it makes little snowflakes while you go. Isn't that so much fun? And then if you do bigger, it'll do bigger snowflakes. So yeah, things to play with, lots to do, lots to look at. Have fun with all of these shapes and drawing tools, get a good feel for them. Now, for those of you who are in my class, I hope you are starting to understand how you are going to start creating some digital logos using shapes and texts. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool, which allows you to get even more detailed with your graphics. It's kind of an art and a science, and it deserves its own video, so be sure to check that out.